You're looking at footage from 2010. No filters, no dramatisation, just a street in Huddersfield, broad daylight, and a scene English football had spent the best part of the past 2 decades telling itself was finished. But it wasn't finished. Because what happened here wasn't just a few blokes having a drunken tear-up. This was organised, this was deliberate, this was old school football violence. The sort of thing people associate with grainy VHS tapes, terraces packed shoulder to shoulder, and a Britain that likes to pretend it all got left behind somewhere in the 1980s. Only it didn't get left behind. It just got quieter. For years, the line was that football hooliganism had been crushed. New laws, new policing, CCTV everywhere, banning orders, intelligence units, all-seater stadiums, the Premier League makeover. Nice shiny grounds, corporate boxes, half and half scarves, tourists taking selfies before kickoff. English football had cleaned itself up, or at least that was the sales pitch. And to be fair, a lot of it has changed. But underneath all that polish, there was still the old loyalties, the old grudges, the old names, the old faces, and the old mentalities knocking about. Because if you're going to understand what happened in Huddersfield, you've got to understand what Millwall meant in a story of English football violence. Not just as a club, but as a symbol, a badge, a warning. For decades, the name alone carried a certain weight. For some, it was mythology. For others, it was memory. For plenty who had to travel to the den over the years, it was something closer to dread. Millwall's hooligan element, most famously known as the Bushwackers, built a reputation in the 1970s and 80s that went way beyond random aggravation. This wasn't just lads getting leery after 8 pints. It was organised, territorial, and in the eyes of rivals, relentless. They became one of the names most closely tied to the dark side of the English game, back when Saturday afternoons could spill out from terraces into side streets, station platforms and city centres. That whole era cast a long shadow over football, governments got involved, police tactics changed. After Hillsborough, Lord Justice Taylor's report helped drive a total rethink of stadium safety and crowd control. By the 1990s and into the 2000s, the authorities had got much better at controlling what happened inside the grounds and around the obvious flashpoints. And that's the key bit, because even while football was reinventing itself, police and officials were admitting that the violence hadn't always gone away, it had just shifted. Away from the turnstiles, away from the terraces, away from the cameras they controlled, into train stations, industrial estates, pubs, town centres, places where the old rules still had room to breathe. And that's what makes Huddersfield in 2010 so striking. This wasn't supposed to be the era for this anymore. This was League One, Huddersfield Town against Millwall. Not a cup final, not one of those fixtures that Sky would sell as tribal warfare for a week straight. Just a lower league game most of the country wouldn't have even given a second thought. But that's the thing with this world, it never needed glamour. And it definitely never needed permission. Before the match, Millwall supporters were travelling into Huddersfield with groups making their way towards the Waterloo pub area, a known pre-match spot in the town. What followed became known by some as the Battle of Waterloo. Reporting on the case later said the trouble began when bottles and ashtrays were thrown at minibuses carrying Millwall fans outside the pub. That's when it kicked off properly. Not chaos in the pub sense, not a mad free-for-all with no shape to it. It had intent. It had direction. Men moving with purpose, charging, regrouping, going again. CCTV later became central to the prosecutions because the footage showed exactly what this was. Not a bit of a post-pub nonsense, but a serious outbreak of organised football disorder. And that's why the footage hit so hard, because it looked like a ghost from another era. The kind of images English football spent years trying to bury. Men running in packs, streets turning into battlegrounds, the match itself almost becoming secondary to the old ritual around it. For anyone who knew the history, it felt less like some brand new outbreak, more like a horrible reminder that the culture had never been fully erased. It had just been pushed out of sight. The police moved in, investigations followed, and the fallout didn't stop with the final whistle. CCTV was reviewed in detail, arrests were made, cases rolled on, Later court reporting said 6 Huddersfield fans and 2 Millwall fans were jailed, while 12 others received varying sentences for their role in the violence. So this wasn't one of those stories where everyone just shrugs, few newspaper columns get written, and it all disappears by Monday morning. There were real consequences. And maybe that's what makes this incident worth talking about now. Not because football violence magically ended there, because it didn't, but because it felt like one of the last moments when the old image of English hooliganism came roaring back into full public view. Not hidden behind chat forums, encrypted messages, or whispers in pubs, but there, on camera, in the open, looking like the kind of scene the modern game insisted belonged to history. So was this really the last hooligan battle on English streets? Probably not, if we're being brutally honest. Football violence didn't vanish, it evolved, got harder to read, harder to police, and in some cases smarter how it organised itself. The authorities got better, no question. Grounds became safer, the family-friendly version of the game became real. But the deeper culture, the appetite for organised confrontation among certain elements, that never completely left. And Millwall, more than most clubs, have always understood the power of reputation. That old chant, "No one likes us, we don't care. No one likes us, we don't care," isn't just terrace noise. For some attached to that culture, it's an identity, a way of seeing the world. Siege mentality, pride in being feared, pride in being hated, pride in being the name people still mention first when the conversation turns to football's hardest edge. That doesn't mean glorifying it, because this isn't about dressing violence up as romance. It isn't about pretending innocent people didn't get caught in the middle over the years, or acting like the bad old days were some kind of golden age. They weren't. Plenty of lives were wrecked by that world, on and off the terraces. This is about documenting it properly. About saying, look, this happened in modern England in 2010, long after football had supposedly moved on. Long after the game had been repackaged and sold back to the world as clean, safe, global entertainment. This footage says otherwise. And if you want to understand how a club like Millwall came to carry that reputation for decade after decade, from the Bushwackers era to the modern game, then you have to look beyond the badge and into the culture around it. The streets, the pubs, the trains, the grudges, the mythology, the men who never really let it go. Because Huddersfield wasn't some freak accident out of nowhere, it was history resurfacing. And for one afternoon in 2010, English football got a proper reminder that some ghosts don't stay buried. Comment down below, no one likes us, we don't care, if you made it this far. Make sure you subscribe and we'll keep telling the stories the modern game would rather forget. And we'll see you on the other side.